Hi, you guys. How's everybody doing? Me, for one, I'm ready for winter to be done. I'm ready for summer. I'm ready for the pool. I got new towels for the pool and everything ready to go. There's bathing suits at Target. You know what I mean? Anyway, so my son, well, a couple of my sons have guns, and lots of people have guns, I guess, apparently. Anyway, I don't have any guns, but I was able to salvage a bunch of these spent bullet shells last summer when we all went camping, and the kids and I went up in the woods, way up in the woods off of this logging road, and went target shooting. So that was really fun. And we just had tons of ammunition, so we just went crazy. Anyway, I filled a gallon jar. Well, it's really a jug, like a moonshine kind of jug, you know. I filled it about halfway with bullet shells. So some of them are like from a 22. I know these are like a 22. Some of them are like, I don't know, 357 something. I don't know. I don't really know about it, but I do know that it's cool metal and mostly brass. These are steel, but whoops, slippery. But I've been making these little bells out of them, and it's kind of fun. And I thought I'm doing some charm packs where I'm just going to offer some bundles of charms for sale, and I thought it would be kind of fun to include one of these in each one of those packs. But I showed these on a journal flip through video recently and asked if anybody was interested in seeing how I made these. So I had a couple people say that they were, and so let's do it. Anyway, so just some trial and error. I've done a couple where I used the little 22 shell as the little clinker. Sorry, you can hear the fire, and you're not going to be able to hear the bell very well, but it's not real loud. It's not, it's not the most pleasant sound. And then this is actually the little clinker thing, and this one is actually from this necklace. I had all of these. I think they're like bobby pins or something, like heavy duty like bobby pins. And it was just this necklace I got at the thrift store. So I used some pieces off of this as the little clinker. Wasn't my favorite, but it sounds, I think, a little bit more, it's a little more resonant than that. It could be the positioning, I don't know. See, this one is using one of those bobby pins. See, I just kind of curled it up at the end, and it just hits the very end of the bell when it's ringing. See? Anyway, but the best sound, in my opinion, is a little glass bead. I like the sound of the little glass bead in there. And I've started attaching another bead at the end of that glass bead, just because I think it adds a little bit more weight and helps it ring better. So yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We'll make one just like this. Okay. The longer shells are more narrow, so I'm not going to use one of those, but not at the moment. I'm just going to do one of these little shorties because it's a little easier, and yeah, and I have more of them. I just want to say, please do not do this with bullet shells or casings or whatever you call them that have not been fired already. There are ways of taking bullets or ammunition that has not been fired. There are ways of taking it apart and actually firing that little charge that's in the end of these. but I don't know how to do that. And I would certainly not recommend that anybody do that unless you absolutely know what you're doing. So these are all spent. They've already been fired, and there's no danger in drilling a hole through that because I forget what it is that's in that, it has already exploded. Okay. So don't do this if it's not already spent. I'm just saying, unless you absolutely know what you're doing. So I have already drilled holes through the top of these. Well, it's actually the end where the hammer hits it inside the gun. So these have already been drilled out. I used my Dremel. It's like on a little drill press type of thing. It's the workstation, the Dremel workstation. And I put a bit in there that I can't remember the size of the bit, but you know, it's small enough to just allow this wire to go through it and not be a huge hole. And so as I was doing it, obviously I didn't use these pliers. I used some more heavy duty pliers. Let's see if I can grab them. I can't find them right now. But anyway, some more like heavy duty pliers, okay, with like teeth to grip this. And then drilled the hole through the end. When you're drilling through metal like this with the Dremel, you know, let the bit do the work. Don't force it quickly. Like, just kind of, you know, apply enough pressure to actually get it through, but you know, don't like just crank on it real hard, because you run the risk of breaking your bit. Because after these have been fired, there's a little divot in that, and just use that as a guide hole for your drill bit, and you'll see what I'm talking about if you decide that you want to try to do this. As far as other alternatives to this, you know, to these, the spent cartridges or shells or whatever, I can't think of any alternatives. But if anybody else has any ideas about what other things that you could use to make these little bells, feel free to leave that in the comments. Okay, so what else are we going to need? We need the little bullet shells, and we're going to need lots of pliers, different kinds of pliers, and then some side cutters. These are flush cutters. Actually, I don't know if this is called a flush cutter because it's angled a little bit, but actually it is, because the blade is right here at the edge instead of in the center. So flush cutters are nice. These ones are kind of messed up at the very tip because I've tried to cut things that are too heavy for this. I have some more on the way, but so I might have a little bit of difficulty using these, but I'll do my best. And then I picked up these beading pliers at Hobby Lobby, and I've just collected, there's 4 different ones that they have. These are made by the Beadsmith, and they're really nice because they're about 6.5 inches long, and they're just really comfortable in your hands. Like I literally like want to do this. I want to do stuff with jump rings and things now that I have these pliers, because they're so comfortable in your hands. So I recommend those Beadsmith pliers. So anyway, I couldn't find that size on Amazon. I got these, but these were like smaller. So anyway, okay. So I can't link these on Amazon, but I know that they carry these at Hobby Lobby. So I got the round nose, the chain nose, and the flat nose, and then I got another pair that are actually for making loops. So it's kind of like curved on one side and a round on the other side. Anyway, that's enough about pliers. Okay, so I just have an assortment of different pliers, and then let me grab, okay, so we're gonna work in that, and then I just want to make sure like that I use a bead that is definitely smaller than that opening, right? So I've chosen just this little like faceted like crystal bead. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is just put an eye pin. I'm using eye pins just because it's easier than using only wire. I will use wire later on, but for this, I'm just going to use eye pins and stuff, and a ball pin on the other little small bead. Anyway, so you want to thread that up through the bead, and then we're going to make a loop at the top. We don't want it to be super long though. We want this to remain sort of as short as possible. So I'm making that loop, you know, as close to the bead as I can and still be able to loop it around or to wrap it around once. So I've got the loop. I've made a loop. Oh, whoops. I forgot. And then I'm just using chain to suspend that bead inside the bullet shell because it gives it the most movement. It gives it the ability to jingle around a lot easier. So what I'm doing is I made that loop, but I still have the tail. Okay, now you can see. I still have the tail, so I haven't wrapped it around yet. So I'm just gonna link that chain through the loop and up, you know, through the tail, like onto the tail and up into the loop. Okay, so now the chain is hooked onto that loop. And then I'm going to grab the loop with my pliers. I'm going to hold on to the loop with my pliers, switch hands. And then I'm going to take this tail and just wrap it around one time. Okay, so it's now locked on there. And then I'm going to use the flush cutters and trim off that little end. And then just kind of smooth that out. Okay, so now we have this little bead with a loop at the end, at the very bottom, and it's attached to the chain. So then I need to see how long to make this chain inside there. Now, at the top of the bullet, there is some area where it's solid. Okay, so really I need something to point with so you guys can see and not my fat fingers. So anyways, this space, this area right here is solid. So we want to make that chain come up to about right here. Because I'm going to be using another eye pin, or I might use, actually I think I'm going to use wire. I'm going to be making another loop. So I don't want to make my chain too long because I still want this bead to be inside the bell, but just barely like at the end of the bell. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So anyways, set this down and then just going to pull that out and just measure how many links and how many links I need. So 1, 2, 3 links, plus I'm going to be adding another loop. So, you know, really it's 4 links to the top, not, you know, counting that solid space. So of the hollow space inside, it would be like 3 links plus my loop. So I'm going to cut this off at the third link. If you accidentally make it too long, then you can always, you know, cut a link off, or if it's too short, add, you know, just add a different piece of chain. So there's not much chain on there. It's only 3 links of chain. Whoops, I'm sorry, guys. It's only 3 links of chain, so it's not super long. Let me see if I can get this to go. There. That's better. Okay. So we've got the bead with a loop at the bottom and at the top with 3 links of chain attached. Okay, and then this is just some, you know, craft wire, brass craft wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a very small loop at the end of this wire using the round nose pliers. Okay, so I wrapped it around, and then I'm going to grip this and kind of kick it back, just like a little quarter of a turn. So it goes forward and then I kick it back a half a turn or a quarter of a turn to make it straight. Okay. And then I'm going to loop the end of the chain through and into that loop. Okay. Can you see that? All right. And then I want to lock that on there. So I'm going to grab it with the pliers on the loop, switch hands, grab that tail, and wrap it around one time. Okay. And then I'm going to cut the end of that off. And I'm so used to doing this with the idea that, you know, somebody's going to be wearing it, that I really like to I don't like there to be things poking out. So I try to be sure I really smooth off that wire. Anyway, so there we go. So we've got a piece of wire with an eye and a little bit of chain with a bead on the end. And then I'm just going to take this and stick it through that hole at the top of the bullet. And hopefully it's the right length. So if I pull that all the way up, you can see that the bead still, it just barely sticks out of the bottom, but it still touches the very edge of the bell. Okay, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. Okay, and now I'm going to make a larger loop on this wire. Okay, again, I make a full turn, make a full ring, a full, you know, loop, and then I'm going to come to the tip of my pliers and I'm just going to kick it back a quarter of a turn. And so that makes my loop go straight up and down. Okay, so my loop isn't going off to one side now. It's going to be straight up and down. Okay, and then I'm going to grab that loop with my pliers, switch hands, and now wrapping towards myself, I'm going to wrap this wire around itself. Okay, all the way back down to the top of that bell. And then I'm just going to cut off that tail. Grab it again. And then smooth that out. Okay. All right. So it takes some practice working with wire and, you know, to get it smooth and to get your loops going straight and all that. But, you know, you can do it. Yeah. And it's a little bell. Okay. And then I'm just going to use a ball pen, which is sort of like an eye pen, except it has a ball at the tip. It has a little round ball on there, and they call that a ball pen. There's also a head pin that has a little flat part at the end. Okay, it's just like so that it won't go through certain beads. I like ball pens. I just think they look nice. But you can also get like decorative ones like these. They have these at Hobby Lobby and Joann's. They're just like a head pin that has, you know, some like decorative stuff at one end. So that might look kind of cool on these. But I'm just going to use a little ball pen. And then I'm going to find a little teeny bead. I want to find one that's a little smaller than the one I used in there. Ooh, this one's pretty. So it's this little, it's another little like faceted bead. Make sure it won't come through. Okay. So I just put the ball pin through that bead, and then I'm gonna make a loop on here. make my loop, and then I kick it back a quarter of a turn. And then I'm going to take that tail and stick it through the loop on the bottom of that bead, okay, of the bead that's sticking out of the bell, okay. And then, I mean, this stuff is all really small, so it's kind of difficult to show you, but I'm grabbing the loop, switch hands, and then I'm going to wrap that tail around the top of that bead. Cut off the excess, and then smooth this down. Smooth that tail down, okay? Yeah. Ooh, it's so cute. Okay, and then I've been using, where'd they go? Oh, here they are. I've been using fishing swivels. They come in all different sizes and stuff, so I thought those were kind of cool. These are fun to use for charms and things like that. If you're using, you know, whatever you're using, you want it to be decorative, or, you know, you want it to move a lot. Like if you're using a sparkly charm and you want it to really move around quite a bit, it's nice to put it on a swivel. Whoops. That wire just went flying. Anyway, so I'm going to attach that swivel with a piece of wire to the bell, but I want to add another little decorative bead on here. So I'm just going to use this little guy. So I'm going to do that loopy thing again. I'm going to make a loop a little bit larger than what I used on the clinker. See, I wrapped it around, kicked it back a half a turn, and then I'm going to hook that loop through this loop. Grab it. I'm going to grab the loop with my pliers, switch hands, grab that tail, wrap it around. This is wire wrapping 101, I guess, right? And then smooth that out. Sometimes it kind of, it's hard to keep it straight, so just got to play around with it. The more you work with a certain piece of wire, the harder it gets. So just if you're playing, if you're doing this and you're just getting frustrated because the wire is getting harder and harder to, you know, keep it in shape, just cut it off and grab another piece of wire. So I'm going to make another loop at the top of that, make it loop all the way around, kick it back a quarter of a turn, and then I'm going to attach the swivel. Pop it through that loop. Again, grab the loop with my pliers, switch hands, and I'm going to wrap this wire around. If you keep enough tension on there, then this wire will spiral down the wire and it'll stay flat against itself, okay? Cut off that tail. And I want to smooth this down. Okay. So there we go. And then we could use like a jump ring and attach a clasp on here. Let's see, this is just a little copper jump ring, but that's okay. So opening jump rings, you never want to pull them open, just in case you've never worked with them before. You want to twist them open, okay? So you twist open rather than pull, and then hook that through the little clasp. This is just a little lobster clasp, and then onto the swivel, and then twist it back together to its original position. Okay. So yeah, so there we go. Little bell made out of a bullet shell. And it's turned into, I think, kind of a pretty little decorative piece that I think would look awesome on the cover of a journal, or on your purse, or your coat, or, you know, your jacket, or, you know, on a light pole or something like that. Just a little pretty bell. And it's a nice way to, I think, repurpose something that maybe doesn't seem so fragile and dainty and pretty, you know. Kind of turned it into something a little more friendly, I think. Anyway, okay, so that's my little bullet shell bead tutorial. You guys have a great day. I love you. See you soon.